there's anything we can assist you, we will. And let me advance the slides. There you go. Please also, if you can, put your name in the chat box. We'd love your name, your role, school or district that you're in. If you'd like to add your email address too, that'd be super helpful for us, as we do kind of keep track of who's here, who's not, but we like to also see who's in the space. So if you could do that, that would be great.
Thank you, Christine, for that lovely welcome. This is Kari Sullivan Custer, and as usual, I'm going to go over the agenda. The first thing we'll do is what's new at CSDE. We'll do today's topic is unpacking data to identify trends and root causes. Our guest today from Bridgeport Public Schools is Carly Roca Reyes, Director of School Counseling, who helps lead their attendance work at the district level and supports the school attendance teams and their efforts as well, and also oversees the Learner Engagement Attendance Program, otherwise known as LEAP, our home visiting program. And then we'll go over upcoming attendance and engagement meetings. Next slide, please. This slide here shows us everything that's been shared by the State Department of Education with superintendents since our last talk Tuesday. Not everything here is relevant to everyone, but I just wanted to share it with you. So the access to Apex Learning and Defined Learning has been extended, so folks can still use that Learning Hub. The Commissioner's Back to School meeting, which is for superintendents, I put this here just as an FYI, is going to be August 17th, and that's when a lot of information is provided to superintendents and other invited guests. This is by invitation only, so I'm not sharing it so people think that it's open for anyone to go to. It's by invitation. There's been a lot of work done in the school meals assistant revenue for transition. If you are working with students and families around school meals, this might be of help to you. Most importantly, at the bottom on August 2nd, the state released Department of Public Health together with SDE and Office of Early Childhood had a press conference and released the launching into healthy learning strategies and framework, which helps us know when to come to school when with the COVID is still around, but we're learning to participate and continue to get back to a new norm within that context now that we have new tools and resources to help us recover and prevent COVID. I'll go over that in the next slide, please. These slides, so this slide shows, go ahead.
There we go.
Go ahead. I had thought I had put something else next, but this slide shows us that we really need kids to come back to school. We had our chronic absence rate when as of June year to date for the monthly data report. This isn't the final data, but the month of June year to date was almost 25%. So a quarter of our students were chronically absent as of June, up from 19.9 the year before and 12.2 just when the pandemic started at the end of 2020. That's a significant increase in chronic absence, and we have a lot of work to do. It's even higher for students with high needs at 34.9%. Our English learners are at 34%. Students with disabilities at 35, and this is just the state average. So many of our alliance districts and SIG schools and charter schools would have higher chronic absence rates. So that's why we have Talk Tuesday, so that we can work together and come up with plans and solutions for how to reduce chronic absence and to encourage families and students that going to school isn't optional and that we need to improve our attendance so that we can engage and learn in school. Next slide, please. In the chat, I'm just asking for each person to let us know, starting off on the right foot. This is something the commissioner is also interested in. Could you identify, tell me, 2 district or school level strategies that you're implementing to help schools return to school, students return to school strong with good attendance? Something you're doing before school starts or something when school opens. So if you could put that into the chat, something you think is unique that others might be interested in learning from. I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes to put that in the chat. Be really helpful for us to kind of take a little survey of what's happening to start the school off to the right, on the right foot.
Here we got some great responses coming in, Kari.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, these are
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. I've seen things, I've heard about, you know, some practices or trainings around restorative practices for staff and some school mental health training. So I know there's a lot going on. We need to start the school off years strong. We know who those students were who were not in school last year as often as they should have been. How are we preparing to welcome them back and improve their attendance so that we had Amanda and talking about school climate and culture at our last talk Tuesday, making sure that there's you know, students feel welcome and that there's communities of caring in the school. So if everyone can just, I'll just give you one more minute to just add those. So connecting with every family by home visit, a call or input person, a back to school night, continued communication, open house night, and good news postcards. I love that, good news postcards. Families are used to getting bad news, but love the idea of the good news postcards. All right, let's see what else we have here. Anyone else have anything to add? Well, if you do, please add it to the chat, and I'd be happy to share that with the commissioner. She's really interested in knowing what folks are doing to welcome students back and start off the school year on the right foot. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so this is what I thought we were going to, this is just a snapshot of this launching into healthy learning guidance that came out August 2nd from the Department of Public Health. We want to minimize the impacts from respiratory disease outbreaks and maximize successful in-person learning and childcare during the coming school year by thoughtfully employing familiar mitigation strategies. So the first thing is starting healthy with vaccination. So it's very important that all students of school age, all children of school age are eligible for vaccines and I believe boosters. And so there's information here about that for all of the 36 Alliance districts. There will be vaccine, mobile vaccine vans coming out, working with the school district to help get more kids vaccinated. That's happening. We want to maximize in-person learning with symptom awareness and at-home testing. And then we want to use available prevention tools based on conditions in your school. And so that includes looking at the, what do they call that? There's a system for reporting COVID cases, and will tell you for your area or your school, not necessarily your district. I think it goes by county, whether it's low, medium, or high. And those are important indicators for districts to decide what kind of prevention strategies they should be putting into place. If you're a district that is a orange high, you may want to consider increasing the amount of time that students may be asked to wear masks in school. This is all at the district level, district decisions, but these are guidance for districts. And the next page, Christine goes into a little more detail about that. And this is all available in the slide decks and also on the SDE webpage. So this tells you more about the vaccine clinics. There will be, they ordered approximately 5 million individual self-test kits that will be distributed to schools and early childhood programs, and they've implemented a new test, mask, and go. The most important thing, I think, a lesson learned from last year is communicating clearly with families about what they should do if they have a question around COVID, or if their child tests positive for COVID. So this guidance is if a student, we know that respiratory illnesses in Connecticut and the Northeast happen often not related to COVID. It could be allergies, it could be a cold, it could be sniffles. And so we don't want to say, don't come to school if you have any of the symptoms. We want to say, take a test in the morning. If it's negative, put on a mask and go to school. And if you are positive, if you're fever-free and well enough to participate, if you don't live with anyone who's had COVID-19 in the past 2 weeks, students can wear a mask and go to school. I also want to it's not here, but I just want to remind folks that the school nurse can be the medical advisor to excuse absences. So for families who have difficulty getting into a health center, health clinic, or don't have access to a doctor or medical care, the school nurse can excuse the absences, can talk to the family in the morning, can check out a student first thing in the morning. If a mom sends a student to school that thinks maybe there's a question, she can call the school nurse. But definitely the school nurse plays a key role in this work and should be included in your district attendance teams meeting, your district health person to determine practices and policies around COVID-19 and students coming to school. But the default should be go to school. The kids are expected to be in school unless they test positive for COVID or have a fever, or they have someone in the household who's had COVID in the last 2 weeks. There will be plenty of tests available for students to take at home before they come to school. Are there any questions about this? I think the challenge here is communicating this in an easy to understand, quick way for families and for staff, and so that everybody has the same understanding. I envision someone coming up with a meme or an infographic where you say, you don't have a fever and there's no one sick at home, and put on a mask and go to school. That should be the message. So if you have any questions about that, I'm certainly not the expert in this area, but it has a huge impact on attendance. We know attendance issues were high last year because of COVID and because of confusion and fear. So we have a lot more tools at our disposal this year than we did last year. All right, next slide, please. So now I'm going to do this kind of quickly because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Carly. But unpacking data to identify trends and root causes. Next slide. I really struggled with how to do this in a way that there was so much I wanted to tell you guys, and I decided I'm gonna base my presentation on this awesome tool from AttendanceWorks that I encourage every school to use. And I also encourage, there's a district self-assessment tool as well. These are from AttendanceWorks. And it's just a pretty easy rubric for everyone on your school team to assess where you are in different areas of addressing attendance. So I'll go through all of these, but the instructions are for you to take a few minutes for every member to fill out the self-assessment individually for each row and check the appropriate box. So you'll see in a minute, there's this rubric with rows, and an individual can say the item is solidly in place, measurable progress, needs improvement, or urgent gap. And make notes about the evidence that provides the rationale for the rating. And then as a team, you compile the results so you can see the responses across all of the team members who took the surveys. And you can discuss the results of the assessment as a team. And you can then reach consensus on what your priorities are for improvement and discuss how your team can work together. It's a great team building activity for the beginning of the year. And it's a great way to check in where you are in the middle of the year and again at the end of the year. And so I want to, there's a QR code here for to link to the assessment tool. There's a link here, and we have the slide deck in a link online, so we can drop that in the chat for you too. So I'm going to go through the school team self-assessment kind of quickly, but there's two areas I'm going to spend a little more time on: data tracking and monitoring, and then monitoring your success. So the next slide, please. So leading a whole school approach to attendance is the first indicator that we're measuring. And so in order to meet this objective, you need the principal makes attendance a top priority for the entire school. Think about how you might answer that for your school. The group responsible for organizing the school's attendance strategies aligned with other school teams to ensure attendance is an integral component of the school's plan. So you don't just have a chronic absence team, a data team, a school climate team, like they're all kind of working together. I know we ask for a lot of teams, and you don't have to have a team called attendance team. I've heard of engagement teams, or attendance is part of the agenda for your school climate team. And I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but I want you to see in a holistic way what this tool does. So it looks at the whole school approach to attendance. Next slide, please. And then it goes into organizing a multi-tiered strategy and aligning. The first thing is, I think, of John Turvin and his agenda from a couple of weeks ago. He talked about on Talk Tuesday, aligning your team agenda to a multi-tiered system of support and making sure there's an engaging climate. And I'm not going to go through this in detail. I want to, but I'm going to keep going just to give you a flavor for this. And then the next one I want to give you a flavor of is identifying barriers and inequities. So do you understand the factors that contribute to absences? And we understand the reasons for disproportionate absenteeism among students. And you're examining your school policies, procedures, practice, contribute to poor attendance. Okay, next slide, please. And mobilize the school community so that everyone is on deck for its all hands on deck approach to attendance. Your teachers, your front office staff, the school bus driver. I'll just tell you an anecdotal story. I was behind a school bus in the town I used to live in, and I saw the school bus was there and all the kids got on, and I saw a kid up the road running towards the bus, and the bus driver took off. And I wanted to chase that bus down and say, why did you leave the student at the bus stop? And so everyone has this approach to improving attendance and improving engagement, and everyone has a positive attitude towards students and not a punitive attitude towards missing school, more of an understanding and empathetic approach. Next slide, please. So here we have examined attendance data, and I really liked this chart because it said everything I was thinking. And so the number one sounds so simple and so easy, is attendance is taken daily and consistently in a caring way. Who takes attendance? Who's responsible for determining if it's an excused or unexcused absence? What is accepted as a parent's note for attendance? Is this equitably practiced across all schools, within schools, and across the district? Are your policies clear about working with students? Are they caring for when they miss school, or are they punitive? For instance, there's no note, it's unexcused. That doesn't work in the framework of chronic absence. We're trying to get to root cause and figure out. There needs to be that extra step in between. Instead of saying the parent didn't send a note, we need to say, I wonder what's going on. We haven't heard from the parent. It's a different approach. We only mark students present for a day if they have received a meaningful amount of instruction. So we know that in Connecticut, being present, we take daily attendance, and being present means being there for half a day or more. And whoever's taking attendance when students come in late or leave early, are they paying attention to that? Are they going back and saying, well, that student came in late, but they were here for half a day, and looking at that information? I know I worked with a high school, one of our urban settings, where they had a notoriously tardy population of students. they moved one of the clerks or the secretaries to the front of the building, right in front of the front door. And those kids checked in tardy and were sent off to class, so that they were able to maintain their records. This is important because, and many of you know, you've spoken to me, we're collecting truancy data for the first time at the student level. And I've had a peek at the data, and it seems there's many inconsistencies across districts around how we're marking excused and unexcused absences. So we want to pay attention to that this year and make sure people are trained and clear on those practices, and putting in a caring way. I love that word, right? Attendance is taken consistently daily in a caring way, not in a no, we got you, you're unexcused. So then you're looking at your data, it's broken down by grade, race, ethnicity, home language, disability, zip code. You're looking at groups of students to see where are the disparities in the attendance data. You're looking at your students who are suspended and your discipline absences. Attendance and chronic absence data trends and patterns are monitored every week. So this is where your PSIS office, your student information systems, they're part of your team, your attendance team. They need to be there, and they need to provide access to daily current attendance, either through weekly reports or through, many districts have a dashboard. And so your PSIS staff should be helping you with that, especially if you're on this call and you're an Alliance district or a charter school or whatever. You need to be working together in sync. If that's not happening, we need to talk and see how we can make that happen. So you should have easy access to regular weekly attendance. And chronic absent data are used to identify students in need of early or intensive supports. So you're not paying all your attention on those students who have missed, we're in October, and of course we want to make sure we know who's on the rolls and who's moved, and that's a really busy time of year for that. But we don't want to spend all our time on students who are at tier 3 level chronic absence and forget about those students who are approaching tier 2. We want to be looking at all of our students and seeing what their patterns are. Students who have missed 2 days in September or 3 or 4 days in October are students who are likely to continue a pattern that will have them finish the year chronically absent. You have a plan for monitoring attendance in the current school year. I hope at this point, if you were at your school attendance team meeting and you were taking this assessment, does your team and your school have a plan for monitoring attendance throughout the school year? And that should be something that's being put in place this summer. Are there any questions? So we want to make sure we're tracking attendance accurately, consistently, in a caring way that is equitable across all populations of students. We want to make sure students are marked present if they're there. We want to make sure that we're breaking down the data in a way that we can analyze who's missing the most school. And we want to be looking at it early and often. So any questions, just raise your hand in the reactions. But everyone can kind of think to themselves, where do you think you are in your district or your school in this? Is everything solidly in place? Or where are the urgent gaps? Well, who do you talk to if you're concerned about one of these elements that you might want to address? And there's a note from Attendance Works that they have broken out their expanded what they're looking at. They're trying to make sure that they have students contact information. How are they connecting with families with different metrics? How are they participating? Do students have relationships? Which students don't have relationships? Doing that whole relationship mapping exercise. All right, next slide, please. So then the next part of this whole data cycle is monitoring progress. Do we have school-wide goals for attendance and chronic absence? Is everyone aware of them? Are they achievable? Are they realistic? Is there buy-in? Does the whole team buy into these goals? And then we look at our data as in the first slide, and we see where are our trends and who's missing too much school, and what are the causes for that? What are the root causes? And then we develop interventions that we think might help this. We implement home visits for students who we think may be helpful. But once we implement these interventions, or say we have school-based mentoring, are we looking at those students who get the intervention and seeing if their attendance is improving? Not perfect. I'm not saying everybody has to get down to below 10% and no longer chronically absent, but is their attendance improving? If they were at a rate of missing 30% of days a month, are they down to 20% of days a month? And really looking for ways to measure success, or to think about maybe this isn't an intervention that we should be spending our time on. And many of you are familiar with the Hexagon tool for doing that sort of research on your interventions and figuring out what's working and what's not working, and not just throwing another intervention on, right? Thinking about, is it having an impact? So we monitor the efficacy of interventions and expand, modify, or abandon based on evidence. Team members consistently engage in a continuous improvement cycle. So small tested change, usually plan, do, study, act, which is a system that I'm not as familiar with, but there, you could Google that. And if anybody who uses it wants to speak to it, I welcome you to do that now. But making sure that you just are watching your interventions to make sure your work is benefiting a significant number of students. It's almost like we spend a lot of time with a lot of work on a small number of students, and we need to work smarter to make sure our efforts are impacting a significant amount of students. That's where Tier 1 comes in. And those home visits and the mentors or adult relationships or check and connect, those are for students who are Tier 1, Tier 2 to keep them from becoming Tier 3. And so really thinking of this and doing this work as a team and going through these kind of exercises at the beginning of the year, and then again, maybe in the middle of the year, to see if you changed, if people feel like things have improved on the team, and you can figure out where you need to put your focus. So I think that this is one of the best tools for teams. This, along with, and we can cover this later, Attendance Works also has a year-round calendar for planning your attendance strategies for the year. What do you do in September and October? What do you do in December to prepare people for the holidays and vacations? But I just wanted to share this tool with folks. I think it gives a good perspective on what you should be thinking about related to your data. And I'm going to go to the next. I have a couple more slides, but I think I saved them for after Carly. So I think Carly's next. Yep. Now it's and I introduced Carly Reyes to talk about her experience in Bridgeport.
Thank you, Kari. I just got a message that my internet is unstable, which rarely happens. So I really hope it's okay. But so I do have to say our district attendance team does use that tool through Attendance Works. And we usually do it right before we leave for the holiday break in December, because we've been working for a good amount of time. We can really assess where we are, what we for the remainder of the school year. So it's a really great tool that we use. So Bridgeport, when we meet as a district attendance team and when we're working with school-based attendance teams, we look at data, which is the overarching district data, the map data, which is closer to school level data, and then street data is what we hear directly from families. Some of those barriers are to attendance. So next slide, please. So the satellite data is that, very high glance of how the district is doing. So we always compare our data to other districts who have similar demographics to ours, and then how Connecticut is doing as an average. Of course, we're not comparing ourselves because we want to be better. We want to see where we are and make sure that we are working, to reduce our chronic absenteeism and increase our attendance rate. So this is just an example of how we look at our data from the district attendance teams.
Carly, can I ask a question?
Yes.
The blue boxes that you have, so if your team was looking at this, would those be other districts listed there, your district and then other districts?
Yes. So I covered it just because
Yeah, I get it.
but yeah, so the blue boxes would be our district is listed there, and then other large districts that have similar DRGs to ours, those are also listed there. So we would just kind of look comparatively to those districts. Thanks, Kari.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we look by grade level as well. I know it's really small, but what's nice is all of the green at the end, because we're comparing our attendance by grade as compared to the previous year attendance rates. So we look at our enrollment number change, and then we look at our attendance rate. And we clearly identified high school as an area where we needed to give more attention to, because all of the grade levels in high school had a decrease in attendance rate. So this is right away you can see, okay, this is a satellite data, high school students, we need to focus more on them for attendance.
Carly, if I were in a district and I wanted to do this, where did you get this Excel spreadsheet that you manipulated here?
So when Connecticut publishes on the Connecticut State Department on the Ed site, I pull those Excel sheets, and then I just start manipulating the data and comparing it to the last year's data.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And it was actually a recommendation from Kari at one of these. She said, find someone that's really good at Excel and add them to your district attendance team.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And so she, gave me the Excel 101, and it's been really helpful to produce these type of reports that can right away show some good information. So then we look at our EL population. So this is the data through June. And then we break down and look at our students who are experiencing homelessness. We want to make sure that we are just not giving blanket interventions to groups of students. We want to be really specific about what interventions we're giving for specific groups of students who are experiencing different challenges or barriers. Okay. And then our special ed students, and which is nice, the reports that are published also break down our special ed population by primary disability. And so we were able to see right away students with multiple disabilities. Those specifically were the students who had higher rates of chronic absenteeism. So it's even more broken down than just, again, a blanket students who are receiving specialized instruction. Okay. And so now we're moving a little bit lower to our MAP data. Some of our more school-based data, also very helpful, gives us a little bit of a closer lens into what's happening. So we like to collect a lot of data around mid-year, because in the beginning of the year, we're implementing, we are strategizing, we're trying to come up with new and creative ways. At that mid-year, we can really start to analyze what we're doing and what's working. So we are currently using Parent Square as our way of communication. Families receive the information in over 100 languages, the language that they choose, the form, whether it's email or text message during the time that they have decided that they want to receive that communication. We also developed a student success team, which is a group of counselors and social workers who are really helping support the school-based SRBI and MTS teams, and try to work with those tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, so that school counselors can really be providing that foundation, the tier 1 preventative strategies to all students, and hopefully lifting some of that heavy work off of them to give extra support. So looking at that data, looking at our Zello data, which is similar to our Naviance, our developmental college career prep programs, how well that's being implemented. Our restorative practice interventions this year, we are expanding our restorative practice facilitators in schools. And now we've developed a way to track all of those interventions on our Power School. So this was the first year adding that feature to our Power School. So hopefully to really collect some good data around who's implementing restorative practices, what type of restorative practice is being implemented, and hopefully seeing a correlation between that and our attendance and discipline data as well. Our professional development data, of course, our work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our Move This World, because we know that creating a safe culture, a culturally competent school culture, all can increase our sense of belonging. And that's something that we're really working on. Because during one of our surveys, we did see a need for students feeling that sense of belonging. So that's our mid-year, and then compared to our end of year data. Okay, thank you. And a little bit even closer to what we call our street data. And I didn't make this up. There's a book called Street Data. I'm not taking any credit for this, but this is just the way that we've, as a district, we've read the book, and we're implementing that way of analyzing data. And I definitely recommend it. It's a good read. And so then this is our street data. This is our parents interacting. This is our parents giving us information. We've created a Sway, which for any districts that use Office 365, it's a virtual newsletter. And so we created these newsletters around attendance, around mental health resources for students and families. And then you can see how many parents have read it or interacted with the newsletters. Expanding our community partnerships, getting students connected with mentors, with home visitors. We're really excited. We're actually up to 61 home visitors this summer. So we're really working hard to collect that street data, because it's one thing for us to say, you know, all these students are chronically absent, or our SEL survey has given us this information, but it's much more powerful when we connect with a family and they explain to us their challenges and barriers. And then we can start to work together as a district to help support families to re-engage in schools and increase attendance. Okay. So some of our challenges and celebrations here in Bridgeport. So we know high school students, we need to focus more on them for this coming up school year. And all of this satellite map and street has, you know, shown all certain students that we need to focus on for students who are receiving specialized instruction. But we did see a decrease in our chronic absenteeism from January through May, I believe, Kari, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we celebrated, because every gain is a celebration. We did see an overall attendance increase for students with disabilities, as well as students experiencing homelessness. Our students, the number of students who were experiencing homelessness increased, but their attendance rate increased too, which was really important to us, because we identified that at the very beginning of the year that we had to monitor that population of students, and we had to make sure that we got transportation in quickly for those students. And we found that there was a gap there, that there was some communication with how the channel of communication should flow. And that right away was something that we fixed, and hopefully that was what improved that attendance rate. Okay. I talked a little bit about our panorama survey. So we did a staff and student panorama survey in the fall and spring. And then this year, for the first year, we implemented a family, so we did student and staff. This year, we implemented a family survey. And so we asked about identifying barriers to engagement, how they felt about school being safe, and family efficacy too. So we collected some great data through that survey. Okay. And for those of you who don't use Panorama, I just wanted to show a little bit of all of the data that you can extract from one question. So this question was about how big of a problem is the following issue for becoming involved with your child's current school? And it's how busy is your schedule? So is that a barrier to you being involved in your child's school? And 52% responded favorably. So they said, and favorably means it's not a problem at all, or it's a small problem. And then if they said it's a medium problem or a large problem or a very large problem, that would be not favorable. So then we can break it down even further by language, by race and ethnicity, and by grade level. So we asked families about if transportation was a barrier, if childcare was a barrier. So we can really try to see if there are any little things that we can tweak to help improve parent engagement. So I just wanted to share what we're doing here and over the summer in preparation. I know that was one of Kari's questions, and I'll just share a little bit about what our summer has looked like. Okay. So I mentioned we expanded our home visiting program. So our home visitors are out there every day making home visits, trying to connect with families. Of course, prioritizing students who were chronically absent last school year. When administrators return next week on Monday, we have training scheduled, all-day trainings for them for the entire week. And two of them, one is building restorative schools. It's a full-day training that every administrator, supervisor, director will participate in. And another full day, actually it's a half day, of engaging families. We're working with Search Institute on engaging families. And then in the afternoon, we will be inviting PAC and PTSO leaders in to engage with families and start preparing for the school year. So I think it'll be a nice flow to kind of reiterate how important it is for us to engage with families, and then provide that opportunity for administrators to work directly with their parent leaders to set the tone for the year, to show how important that relationship is, and then start to plan what those student engagement activities will be for the remainder of the school year. Our advanced restorative practices training is actually happening right next door right now. It's a three full day training that we have about 30 of our staff members participating in. We created an 8th grade transition page at the end of this past school year. And so we collected through PowerSchool. PowerSchool pulled in a lot of information, and then school counselors and 8th grade teachers added additional information about students who are transitioning to 9th grade, because we know how difficult that year is. And so we collected attendance, discipline data through PowerSchool, and other things like medical alerts or other alerts that are on their PowerSchool. It's a one-stop page. And then school counselors and 8th grade teachers also added if students were involved in any mentor or connected to mentors, receiving any community-based services, were they having any other troubles or issues in the school that would be very helpful for a 9th grade team to know before that student even walks in the building. Also, things like, would we recommend the student for advanced coursework? Is this a student that we need to challenge, that we need to make sure that they are enrolled in courses that are going to be challenging to them? And so all of this data was added to one 8th grade transition page on PowerSchool, and then reports were, I created a report, broke it up by 9th grade team, and then sent it to them to begin to review now in preparation for their incoming 9th grade class. And lastly, our expansion of Zello. So last year we had a student success day where during that day, every student created their student success plan. And Zello was all ready for all high school students, and we had 80% of our high school students create a student success plan on Zello. And we felt that that was so powerful and meaningful. And so we've expanded Zello to all of our middle school students. So everyone will have a platform where they can input their goals, but also work on some self-exploration and start to learn more about themselves and help develop their pathways in order to help them to reach those goals. And so middle school teachers will be trained on Zello to also support that process. And hoping that this data that we collect on Zello for middle school will help to reshape some of our coursework in high schools, because we want to know what are students really interested in. And we're hoping that this data will help us to develop stronger pathways in high school to meet the needs of our students. And I think there's one more slide, which is just our LEAP billboards, which we always like to share, because if you drive through Bridgeport, hopefully you've seen them. They're pretty much all over 95 and the connector. And they rotate in 3 different languages, English, Spanish, and Portuguese. We ended our year off with just a summer fun one. And now we've already posted the back to school date, so everyone is aware. And we change them on about a weekly basis. And this is part of our LEAP initiative. So we've created a LEAP website where families can learn more about LEAP. And this is just a really fun thing that we've been doing here in Bridgeport, because the students think they're famous once they get on the billboard. And so they look for it all over 95. And when a school is displayed on there, it's something really fun to celebrate.
Thank you, Carly. That was excellent. I think there's at least one question in the chat.
Sure.
People love the billboard idea. I love the Zello and the student success plans. That's amazing. Kenneth Joseph wanted to ask if you could remind us the tool you used for your newsletter.
Yes, so if you use Office 365, it's one of the add-ons. So it's right on your team, on your Office team, where you can have a calendar, your message, and then you can add on what's called I'm sorry, it's not on the team. It's on when you open your Office 365. It's when you can pick to write a form, or it's called a Sway. So it's a newsletter through Sway. It seems a little difficult to create, but once you start kind of playing around with it, it's pretty easy. You can add pictures and links and resources, and then you send a digital picture and a link out, and then you can kind of track how many people are viewing your newsletter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love how your planning, your plans for the summer don't just include what we're going to do 2 or 4 families, right? We're getting our administrators ready. We've got our Zello and our student success plans, and we've got our 8th grade page so that we can transition that information to high school more easier. I really like that. Are there any questions? Who has questions for Carly? If I can just toot her horn, because she didn't, their chronic absence level for the largest district, if not the second largest, I'm not sure, kind of changes sometimes, is their chronic absence rate was in the high 20s for most of the year, which is amazing. The state average has been in the low 20s. Most of our larger districts are higher than that, but to finish the year around 30% chronically absent just shows that all of this effort and the looking at the data and all of your strategies have just been really effective. There is a whole district buy-in to this, and as there is in so many of our districts, one of the most remarkable things in Bridgeport is the attendance of their multilingual learners. Carly, I'd hate to put you on the spot. If you're available to talk about that a little bit. I know we spoke about it at your end of the year meeting.
Sure. Yes, we do have a very large population of multilingual learners. And this year we opened up a welcome center. And so that's staffed. It actually, our bilingual department is at the Welcome Center. So it's all for new arrivals, but also has kind of expanded to anyone that needs English language support as well, in order to register, ask questions, figure out transportation. And so we send all of our not just our new arrivals and new registrations, but all the families that need that language support can also go to that welcome center as well. And we worked, our director of bilingual education is on our district attendance team, as well as our director of special education, our director of nursing, our director of social work, and our superintendent. And so we work really closely as soon as we identify an area where we need to put extra support. And we worked really hard with that population of students as well to make sure that they got the support that they needed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any questions for Carly?
I just want to add one thing really quick. We also did in the middle of last school year a training for our clerical, because I think, our clerical, they're the first face, voice, a lot of the times when families go to a school or call a school, and we did a whole diversity, equity, and inclusion training for our clerical, and it was probably one of the most well-recepted trainings that we had. The clerical were so appreciative of that opportunity, of the training that they received. They asked for more. And I think it was just something that, sometimes we forget that we need to make sure that all of these people are receiving the same training, but also the face of the building.
Before I go to Sue Lori, if I can just remind people to put their name, their district, and their email in the chat, especially if your name on your screen is not clear. We really want to identify which districts are coming to Talk Tuesday. And go ahead, Sue.
Hi, I was just typing in the chat. Carly, I loved your presentation. I took so many notes. Our districts have so many of the same issues. Finally ordered street data on your recommendation. They've said it a million times this summer. But one question I did have, would you be able to share with us that 8th grade transition page, like the questions that you put out there?
Sure, I probably can take a like a screenshot of what that Power School page looks like.
Perfect. I would love that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Carly, would you be interested or be agreeable to putting your contact information in the chat?
Yes.
If you haven't done it already, because this is like one of the best parts about Talk Tuesday is it gives us an opportunity to connect with districts to connect with each other, because that's where the experience and the learning and the expertise is, and we'd love to have you guys, be able to connect. And Bridgeport is definitely my source for learning more about what's happening with data in a district. So to do sort of what Carly has demonstrated is not always easy, because you don't necessarily know, where do I get this data, right? And so I wanted to show you in this slide, the first place to get data is from your district PSIS system. So who is your PSIS coordinator? If you don't know, you can contact me. I just got a list from our performance office, and I can tell you who your PSIS coordinator is. They can run reports. Many districts who are doing this well will send reports out on a regular basis to their principals, get an attendance report on a weekly basis. Or there's a dashboard where when they open up their computer and they can go to a dashboard and see this data. And so many of your districts may have that, but if you're struggling with access to data so that you can look at it as often as a weekly basis, check in with your PSIS system, check in with me, and we can troubleshoot for how to get you really recent data, because it's important to look at data, live data as often as possible. The next best thing is a monthly data portal. So at the beginning of last year, SDE started collecting monthly data, they're called collections, from the school district. So your school district will send SDE a monthly data report at the beginning of the following month. So for September, we'll get it in early October, and it will probably be published in November. So you can get, a monthly data report that might be, there's a lag time. There's about a month to 6 week lag time, but you can get more recent monthly data. And that's what I use to monitor, the LEAP districts or Alliance districts I might be working with, the charter schools. You can go to that and download Excel spreadsheets, just like Carly was using. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. That's at the Supporting Student Participation webpage. And you should have a link to this PowerPoint in the chat so you can download it. So that's the monthly data, and the yearly trend data is at EdSite homepage. And right now it's up to date as of 2020, 2021. And then the 2021-22 will be uploaded later this fall. But I just want you to know where to get your data so that your district attendance team can be looking at it on a regular basis. When you go to the supporting student attendance on the next slide, for the monthly data, people have trouble finding this data. I know it. Go to the next slide, Christine, please. So when you go to the Supporting Student Participation data, the link's on the other slide, there's these little tiny bullets here that are the Excel spreadsheets that you can click on and download. You can get the absence rates, the attendance rates for schools and districts by student group. That's for state and districts. You can get chronic absence rates and remote attendance information for state and districts by student groups. So that second bullet is the chronic absence data. The rest of the data is attendance rates, which are very important. They tell you the percentage of kids that are coming to school on a daily basis. And then the third bullet is school level data. And this year we will have chronic absence data there. In the last 2 years, we only had attendance data, but we will be adding chronic absence so you can monitor schools with chronic absence. I think that'll be really helpful for folks. And so if you could go back to that other slide, I'm going kind of quickly. I wanted to show you some resources for monitoring and tracking attendance. The first one is the most popular community practice that we had last year was when Ajit Kapalakrishnan came and went over the protocol tool and how to analyze your data. That's recorded and the link is here. You can also find it on Talk Tuesday page. The PSIS reference guide for 22-23 is up on the website. Appendix F is guidelines for reporting student attendance. There's all kinds of examples there for questions. It's almost like an FAQ for what to do if a student goes on vacation, what to do if a student is homebound because of an illness. With Appendix L, and these are linked right to those appendices, is what to do for students who are disengaged. This is something I send out a lot at the beginning of the year. This is guidance around what to do for those students who are not showing up for school. You have those 16, 17-year-olds who didn't come last year, haven't shown up for the first 20 days. Somebody's bothering you. We need to take them off the rolls, perhaps, just unenroll them. Here are the procedures for what you have to follow if you have a student who's totally disengaged from school. There's protocols for that. And I also put here, this is in there's the guidelines for excused and unexcused absences. Those have not been updated since 2013. They will be updated this year to include attendance for remote learning and the mental health and wellness days. I put here, we're collecting truancy data at the student level, and we got a lot of questions about when to mark a student as truant or not truant. This really isn't as relevant until next spring because we won't be collecting this data again until next spring. But I wanted to share this with you so you have it. You know, a student is truant if it's only unexcused absences 4 in 1 month. What is 1 month? It's 30 calendar days. For September 6th to October 5th. It's not like the month of September, the month of October. So that's there for you to have and those resources. And it's just about 11 o'clock. And I have time for questions. The next slide, please. I think we already did. Oh. We already went over that. It's a lot of information, but if there's any questions, I'm available. Stay on.
And Kari, just to let you know, we're going to be putting the PDF version of the slides in the chat. We're just doing it now. I had to forward it to Lauren. So that will be in just a moment. So if anyone has any questions in the last minute, and we'll get that in the chat box.
Okay, great. And then you can download it. It is up on the website, but I'm having trouble getting into my system. I need to log in again. So we'll get that out to you guys right away so you can access all of these resources. And we'll put the recording up on the Talk Tuesday webpage, just with all the other recordings. And any questions?
We do have a hand up. Mike Meyer.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, guys. Not a question, just kudos. Carly, wonderful presentation. It's exciting to see you, your passion, your commitment. It's incredible that you have your district totally supporting this work. I think that's key. And Kari, of course, this goes to show the importance of these events. We are definitely going to take a lot of what you presented, Carly, and see if we can do it in Stanford as well. Thank you so much.
Yes. Carly, thank you so much. A lot of this presentation was shared with the State Department of Education at Stanford's end of the year meeting with the turnaround office, and it was just really, really excited for them and the hard work and just seeing, you know, outcomes for this hard work. So Thank you, Carly, and thank you for making the time today to come and do this presentation as well. Our next Talk Tuesday is August 23rd. It's going to be Judy Carson, Dr. Judy Carson, equitable and inclusive partnerships with families to support student attendance and engagement. I believe she is going to bring a guest speaker with her, so please put this on your calendar, and that will wrap up our summer series for Talk Tuesdays. And here's our contact information if you need to get in touch with any of us.
Perfect. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And we're always available. If you have questions, comments, just reach out.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, Lauren, I think it's all set. Are we still recording?